What's going on, guys? You're watching Shieldbearer Faith. Thanks for being here. So, if you haven't been keeping track of what's going on in China right now, I think there's a lot to be learned from that. But to bring you up to speed as best I can quickly, there is a protest in Hong Kong that has now caused protesters to retreat or go into a university and essentially barricade themselves inside. And I think there are good preparedness lessons to be learned from this. So let's get into it. So the protesters have barricaded themselves inside a few maybe days ago, and they are stuck. The building is now surrounded, and if you are familiar with any kind of medieval style history, this is essentially a siege. Meaning you are stuck in a static position, and you are surrounded, and now it's a war of attrition. So what's the takeaway for that for us here, in a preparedness mindset? Well, how many people have you ever heard, I know I've heard several, say that when stuff happens, when the balloon goes up, crap hits the fan, they're going to Walmart or Sam's Club or, name your big box retailer, and they're going to hold up there. That's their go-to plan. Well, when you think about where historically looters have frequented first, it's the big box stores for things like electronics, shoes, food, water, essentials, non-essentials. That's where they go first, right? So let's say that already happened. You essentially are planning to put yourself into the exact same problematic situation that the protesters in Hong Kong have right now. Well, how is it the same? Right? Because you're choosing to go to a well-known, easily seen, static location that can easily be cut off from the outside world. That's not a good plan. That's not a good suggestion. In my job, if we're chasing a suspect, as soon as they go into a building, a house, an apartment, something like that, if we can see the front and back of it, pretty much, with some exception there. I'm not going to go into all the details, but pretty much if we can see the front and back of it, you're done. You just don't know it yet. Because once you have given up mobility, you've given up freedom of movement, you're done. You have lost that fight, whatever the fight is. And we will bring enough resources or enough people or enough time. Time is the big one. We can wait longer than you can. And the protesters are finding that out. They are sitting in a place that is not designed to be holed up in. It's not a bunker. It's not unbreachable. It's not well stocked, I'm sure. Food, water, things like that, power. They're going to be turning off that stuff. The police are. Especially if you're talking about a dictator environment, guys. They're not going to be afraid to turn off your water supply. You can only go so long without that. They don't have to go and breach those doors. You're going to come out on your own. All they have to do is wait. And that's literally what's been happening. The news report I was watching just before making this video was talking about the estimate initially a few days ago was about 1,000 protesters were stuck in there. Voluntarily they held up, they barricaded themselves in the university. Now there's estimated a couple hundred in just a few days. That means that in just a few days, the momentum was lost. The inertia, the drive, the will to continue that effort was lost because resources were lost. They had their supply cut off. Next point I wanted to bring up was in relation to this. Apparently there was a separate group of protesters trying to break the siege of that university by creating a distraction or a second front, right? So you've got the building surrounded, you've got the protesters inside that are barricaded in there, so that's like the castle, right? The siege is going on. They have no way out without being arrested. If they do, it's very limited because you've got all these people waiting for you to come out with things like night vision, lots of manpower, lots of lights. And then a second group of protesters arrives and tries to give you a gap, to give you a way out. I gotta be honest, that's a better idea than going into the place, but not perfect because again, you're working against time. All the police have to do is buy time. So if this second group of protesters are trying to create a distraction, that's going to be obvious. You're talking about an obvious move. It was even reported by news anchors that don't know what the heck's going on. They don't know tactics or strategy, but they know that that's exactly what was going on. These protesters are trying to create a distraction, create a new gap, so that the line around that environment is weakened to the point where maybe the protesters can escape. It's probably worked for a few, probably not most. Getting 1,000 people out in this manner, it's not likely. Again, you're going against a system that is better equipped, better supplied, and has a whole lot more time than they do. Just food for thought. So next time you're thinking about going and holding up in a Walmart, don't give up mobility. No. Yes, you need housing and structures and material and all that to survive. But do not give up mobility for, I guess we're going to call it security of the mind. Because you're going to feel safer being inside of a big building, but you're not safer. All right, guys, I hope it helps. I really hope things chill out for Hong Kong. It's really sad to see that going on, but it is interesting times, so we'll see you later.